Hi everyone, how's it going? I'm here again, Brandon, and this is episode 2 of Student Talks. And today I've got Fadel here, one of my classmates from 2021 Management Engineering. And we're just going to kind of quickly jump into it, run the same thing that I ran last time with Marcus, go over Fadel's background, why he chose Management Engineering, what he's doing today, and kind of where he plans to go in the future. So, Fadel, let's jump right into it. How about we start off with the... Yeah, sure, go ahead.
Great intro. Thank you for that intro, Brandon. And sorry for interrupting you right now. But yeah, basically, yeah. Um, like Brandon said, my name is Fadel. I'm currently a 4B management engineering student at the University of Waterloo. So currently in my final year. I'm currently interning in my last co-op as a data scientist for a very cool jewelry startup called Majuri in Toronto. And yeah, it's been as a data scientist, and I've been in that space for a while, just kind of, waiting the last few months before I graduate and, figure my life out for a full-time career. That's the gist so far.
And Fidel, like, tell me a little bit of your background growing up. Like, where did you grow up, and kind of where did you go to elementary school? How about high school? And then, all of your childhood prior to university.
100%. And man, it was a ride. I actually, fun fact, Canada is the third country that I've lived in so far. So I originally grew up in the Middle East in Palestine, and I lived there for about 6 years until I was in first grade. And for most people, just a small background, it was a very fun time. But in that area, things are kind of slightly rowdy. So when I was in first grade, my father actually found a really great job opportunity in Dubai. And at that time, Dubai was just at the, starting to get that like industrial like innovation and revolution with many projects and, becoming the thing it is now. So we moved to Dubai when I was in first grade. And I lived in Dubai for about, I'd say, 8 years. And that was a pretty interesting time because, Dubai was a very multicultural place. I went to an international private school. So I really, really got a sense of many nationalities and ethnicities, from Russian to German to Canadian to English to Kenyan. So there was a lot of, cool experiences that I gained from living in Dubai. And it was interesting. So at about when I was in, the seventh grade, my parents started thinking, long term. It's like, okay, for post-secondary education, where do you want to go? Where should we go? And obviously, Canada is like a very top-notch place, especially when it comes to post-secondary education. And we heard many stories about how it's like, an awesome place. So in about 2010, we took like a small trip to check Ontario out, Toronto, and we fell in love with the place. And we're like, okay, this is awesome. So in about 2011, I made the immigration to Canada, and I immigrated to Little Oakville, Ontario. I haven't looked back since. I've been in Canada for about, I would say, nearing, 9 years now. And it's been awesome. So I went to elementary school in Oakville, Ontario, and then I moved to White Oak Secondary School in Oakville as well. I did something called the IB program, and for viewers who may not be fully, familiar with this program, it's like the International Baccalaureate. It's like a world program out of Switzerland that basically preps you for university. And at the time, it was pretty interesting because at the time during high school, I had no idea what I wanted to do, to tell you the truth. At the beginning, I had the ideas of, but, despite that, I was very, I would say, academically oriented, just from, coming from my family's background and also like, the cultural norms of where I come from. Academics are a very big, important role in your life. So I was very academically focused, but I just had no compass of where I wanted to direct that focus. I wanted to become a doctor at first, but sadly, after the grade 10, tutorial of like, dissecting frogs and various animals, I realized that, being a surgeon or a doctor was not a good fit for me. And I wanted it for all the wrong reasons, like I just wanted to, make my parents proud. And then around like, grade 11, grade 12, I kind of delved into the idea of like, law school. I was like,
Okay.
I enjoy public speaking. People tell me, oh, you're good at arguing. And at that time, I don't know if you remember, there was this very popular show called Suits that came up,
Yeah.
which really hyped up that life. And I was like, oh, that's it. You know what? Law is what I want to be. So those were like my, 3 criteria for choosing that. I'm like, that's it. I think I want to be a lawyer. I'm probably going to do like a business degree, or political science, and then apply for law school. After it was not until grade 12 actually that I came across Waterloo and engineering as a whole. Like up until grade 12, I had no idea about
Right.
the University of Waterloo. I went to dinner with a good family friend who was actually in management engineering at the University of Waterloo.
Oh, no
And he
way.
started
Okay.
explaining to me, and it sounded like a very, very cool program. He was like, because for me, I looked at as engineering, like I enjoyed STEM fields, but not as much to, delve in them and dedicate them as my full-time career. Because like it seemed to me, or at least I had that stigma that, oh, most people that entered engineering were the kids in high school that were very, very committed to like clubs like, robotics, or really enjoyed physics. I was like, kind of like one of these kids in the middle where I enjoyed these courses, physics, math, the STEMs, but I wasn't sure that I wanted to do it full time. I didn't enjoy it that much. But the way he
Okay.
explained this program, I was like, wow, this seems like a cool middle ground for like, getting that technical foundation, but it also offers you a perspective of how to, implement it in a real life setting from like, a business perspective. So I was like, okay, this looks like a cool program, and I applied. Sorry, I've gone on a complete tangent, so I'll let you interject if you
No,
want me
that
to
was
add any more
perfect,
to.
Fidel. That was a great response. And I have a question. Like, when you first came to Canada, do you
Mhm.
remember how you felt? Did you feel out of place? Did you feel like you fit in right away? And how was that transition? Because obviously that's a big scary experience. And so
That's a
how would you describe
yeah,
that?
that's a great question, by the way, and thanks for asking that. Not many people ask that. That's awesome. But yeah, it was kind of like a fresh off the boat scenario. There were definitely difficulties in transitioning, as anyone would moving from a country. So when I first came, I will be honest, the first 2 3 months I did definitely feel out of place. And it's not necessarily like, oh, the people didn't make me feel welcome. On the contrary, like I've met some of the most hospitable people in Canada. It's just that I feel like maybe just like slight differences. So I'll begin with like a micro differences, and then things that are
Okay.
like macro. But like for example, when I first came for micro differences, the school I went to, and usually like in Dubai, it was very rigorous in terms of like we would have like examinations every week. You'd get detentions for like very minuscule things. We actually had like this huge exam hall where people like you'd go to write exams, even at such like a low grade of grade 6, grade 7,
That's insane.
every week. Yeah. So I remember when I first came, to the elementary school. First of all, the size was nothing compared. Usually, schools in Dubai are aggregated not just by elementary then high school. It's usually like jumbled up into one. From kindergarten to grade 12. So you'd have
Yeah.
a larger population. So when I first came, first day, I looked at the school and I was like, "Is this it? Or is that like a section of it?" Like I even remember. The elementary school that I went to shares a lawn with another school. And
Okay.
because of that cultural difference of like thinking like, usually there's big schools, I actually crossed into the old school, and I stayed there for like 30 minutes until they were like, "Who are you? What are you doing here?" And I was like, "Oh, is this not part of the same campus?" And they're like, "No." But that wasn't one. Second thing is like I noticed as well, like from especially an education perspective, that it's not examination focused, especially like schools. Uh, and this is one very thing I like about Canada. It's focused more about building yourself from like an interpersonal perspective. There's a lot of presentations, a lot of group work, which I found really cool. Um, Small, like to tell you the truth, it was just I feel like the only big gap was, I don't think I experienced like feeling off as much as like new people, just because the school I went to in Dubai was quite international and had a lot of
Right.
like Canadian expats. So I kind of
Right.
was familiar with like hockey, Tim Hortons, the not. But the biggest thing for me was just the perspective academically. That was like a micro thing. Like basically from a rigorous perspective, that was just like me memorizing, equations and words and putting them in an exam hall, and getting like being in a very like rigorous structure to like really being in a much more relaxed structure in a Canadian elementary school system, but it prioritized different skills that I didn't even think about, like, presenting and group work. Now, from the macro perspective, one thing I really was a big difference is the fact that people really, really value sports in Canada, okay, which I really enjoyed. And that's not to say that people didn't value sports in Dubai. There's many athletes, but there's a very athletic-oriented culture, which I think is good. So, for example, I had many friends, and even it's like they'd be playing, they'd have hockey practice multiple times a week, soccer practice, you name it, baseball practice, and they take it very seriously as if it was a job. So I feel like there's a lot of good values into people that were implemented just from, the sports, valued culture that I don't think really existed in the Middle East, which I found really cool. Number one. Number two, one thing, of course, and this is like very cliche, but the beautiful, natural beauty of Canada, all the greenery, right. The amenities were awesome, the public parks. That was like a very big eye-opening thing that I really enjoyed. And the last thing I'd add to this question was definitely like how do I say this? Like the kind of sustaining yourself. That's one thing I also enjoyed, and I've seen in people, people would get part-time jobs, especially even in high school. When I saw like grade 9, grade 10, people would work, in a way just to like, support themselves. And in the beginning, I found that like really weird, because I was like, why would you want to work as a part-time job? We didn't really have that in Dubai. People like working part-time jobs like in high school or elementary school, but I decided to go with the flow and actually like, got a job at McDonald's for my part-time job, like early in high school, like grade 9. And it really, really, starts putting things into perspective for you, the discipline, having a work schedule, dealing with the pressures of work from an early age. And you get, to understand how hard it is to earn a buck, so you start valuing
for sure
your money more.
That's crazy. So, like, obviously that's a big change, and it sounds like you handled it really well, coming from, a completely different cultural environment into the very, almost in a sense, relaxed cultural environment of Canada. And do you think, so obviously, like, going into, let's jump back to the future a little bit more now. So before you had decided to go to the University of Waterloo, obviously that conversation with the family friend was very influential to making that decision. Do you remember what you thought university might be like after you had applied, after you had accepted that offer, but before you had come to campus?
To Waterloo?
Yeah,
so I had zero expectations. So I'm the oldest person in my family, so sadly I didn't get to experience, visiting an older sibling to see what it was like. But yeah, for me, to tell you the truth, the main expectation. So this is a good question. I would like to touch upon it, because like there's a lot of stigmas that get put into your head before you go to university. So at the beginning, the main stigma in my head was like, oh, it's university. It's usually going to be like, a campus, people like, partying like crazy. It's going to be like something like Project X, like you can see. It's going to be a fun time. But then you also see that Canadian universities also have their own stigmas, which and to anyone from high school applying, listening, I'll touch on that too, why you shouldn't listen to that and how you can make it your own experience. But Waterloo, because it's has a very strong tech focus, a very strong engineering program, it kind of gets this rep as like like a quote unquote like nerdy school, where it's like, oh, all people do there is like study, very antisocial, nobody goes out. So those stigmas get passed around in high school as well. And you get other schools like, oh, Queens and Western, that's where like if you really want to socialize, have fun, make friends, they have the greatest parties, you should go there. So to touch on that, actually in grade 12, I was down to 2 offers: management engineering at U Waterloo or going to Queens for commerce.
Right.
And for me at the beginning, I was like, one big thing, it sounds really dumb now looking back at it, but it's because of that point you mentioned. Like my expectation was like, oh, everyone keeps telling me that Waterloo is the school where it's like just very antisocial. Nobody has fun. It's just going to be people, going straight from, their dorms to the lecture hall, then back to their dorms to study. I'm like, is this really what I want for my 4 years, the best 4 years in my university? And I was like, maybe I should go to Queens. I eventually accepted management engineering, and I actually got into like a slump at the beginning. I was like, oh my God, looks like it's going to be like soulless, especially with many people, friends, teasing me and some of them being a bit serious. They're like, bro, are you serious? You're not going to have any fun. But that is absolutely untrue. When I came to Waterloo, especially, and this might sound like a cliche quote, but you really truly make your own experiences. It was not like that at all. You met, very like-minded, oriented people as well. But it's not like everyone just wanted to study. You could have fun in Waterloo if you wanted to, and I know Brandon, you can attest to that fact as well. And it's been awesome. So to add to that fact, I think like all these stigmas, especially if you're a high school student applying, should be ignored. I think any place you go, it's up to you to make your own experience, and Waterloo is a great example of that.
Yeah, that's an amazing response, Fidel, and it's so true. If you come into it thinking that you're not going to have fun and really isolate yourself off, and totally that's okay if that's the type of person you are too. Like some people just love to dive
100%.
into the work, to get very focused, to really kill it. Like one of my best friends in first year got 100% in one of the first calculus courses we took when I was barely passing. And I think it talks to different personalities and kind of what you want to do, but it's very true that if you want to have fun, if you want to have a good work-life balance, that's totally doable at a lot of schools. So things have changed a lot since first year, and things we've gone through the ups and downs of exams, of trying to find co-op jobs, of just life events, because sometimes things outside of school are the most challenging. What's your thoughts now? Like, we're almost graduated. What are you thinking now? What are your thoughts on what you've gone through the last 5 years and stuff like that?
100%. And oh man, it's been a ride, especially looking back at my, like, I'd say for 1 year, like first year self to now. It really is during those like 4 or 5 years you really start exploring yourself and knowing what you want to do. So like even just like a quick summary looking back, when I first entered the program, I had a totally different idea of what I was set on doing versus now. Like I remember when I first entered the program, and this is like the main moral that I'm trying to drive from this is like, try, experiment things. It's up to you. You'll find out what you like and you don't like. It's okay if you're at a point where you don't know what to do. So when I first joined like management engineering at that first point, I was just dead set on that I wanted to enter, for example, consulting and the process improvement manufacturing section. I didn't even care about tech or even know what programming was, and I just had that set in my head. I'm like, that's it. I'm just gonna grind engineering, and I'm gonna enter a consulting role, or like some sort of like process improvement or and manufacturing. But as I went through the years, you start learning more about yourself. You start gaining new skills, and understanding, for example, what you like and what you don't like, and co-op helps with that as well. So that's kind of from like an academic work perspective. But there's another point that I think you and Marcus as well touched upon in the last episode that I think is awesome, and it's something I discovered, and it's the importance of having a balance, especially now. I remember as well, first year I was struggling like crazy, and I actually almost failed out as well in 1B. That was a very hectic time. And for me as well, to prevent that from happening, I was doing that like grind as well, especially for things, just dedicating all my time to school, not talking to anyone, just after lectures would go have dinner and lock myself in my room. But then as the years go, I noticed that everything, the best thing is always everything done in moderation. And especially now towards the thing, doing a little bit of balance where during the week dedicated to school time, co-op, working on your resume. But during the weekend, I do just things that I'd like, either go for, a fresh walk. It really helps. Or for me, for example, I really enjoy watching soccer, especially the Premier League, Barcelona, La Liga. So I do that on the weekend just to, kind of give my mind a nice break. And I feel like once you hit that sweet spot, you actually become more efficient in your work, because you have a sense of enjoyment, as opposed to doing one whole thing of just grinding it out and just being miserable. So that's one big thing I definitely learned as well. Just balance is key in everything.
Yes. That's so true. And yeah, you're totally right. That was something we touched on, and something a lot of us, not just the three of us, and not just our entire program, and not just the Faculty of Engineering at Waterloo, but I think all first year students that are going into this, we expect it to be very difficult. We expect it, obviously at Waterloo as well, the stigmas, as you talked about, are sometimes they're tough. It's a lot of weight. So you think that in order to be successful, when you're pulling in 60s, 40s, in my case 14% on exams, you think, okay, well, I'm already working this much, so obviously the only way I can get better is to work more. So that means I gotta cut from my sleep. That means I can't have fun on the weekend and stuff like that. And sure, this works for a short time period where you're doing this for maybe a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, but in the long run, it starts to really wear down on you, and it gets hard to wake up in the mornings. It gets hard to want to do anything, to even get your work done, and then all of a sudden you're sleeping through your days, and it's just not productive and not good. So I think the balance is huge. So looking back, what's your favorite experience? What's your best memory?
That's a very good that's a hard question, because I have a lot. And this would be just in general, or from having a fun moment, or just a work management oriented moment, or is it just anything in general?
Anything, Fadel. Anything from studying, or to completely unschool related, but school related in the sense that going to university, perhaps the University of Waterloo,
Right.
It kind of led you there, but anything.
So there's actually, I know you said favorite. Is it okay if I share too? These guys, this is
Go ahead.
they're very close. So my first, I'd say, favorite memory that I'll always look back on is, and I hope, COVID, for this one, COVID might impact it a lot, but hopefully as time goes by, first years incoming will have this experience. I think the best experience, and this is also just great for Waterloo, is when you're in first year, during that first week in Frosh, you're going out and you're meeting complete strangers. And the very beautiful thing and it's not like high school where there's cliques formed from elementary or from previous years. Everyone's exactly in the same boat. Nobody knows anyone. Everyone's beginning a new chapter in their life. And it's truly a wonderful experience. And I think, Brandon, you've experienced the same as well, where, during that first week, you just go around, go to V1, rev all the housings, and just meet people randomly. You'd bump into people, you'd talk to them, and you'd be like, hey, you just schedule plans on the fly, let's hang out. I remember one big moment during Frosh is where I just walked into V1, which was for people that don't know, a residence in Waterloo, a student res, it has a big dining hall. Didn't know anyone, and just started talking to random people. Hey, how's it going? And I was amazed at how quickly connections and friendships formed. And that's the beauty of this, because like I said, everyone's in the same boat. And I remember we just formed a group of 10-15 people that never met before. This was the first time meeting. We all grabbed dinner at this huge table, and we chilled for the entire night, playing card games, going to each other's dorm rooms, playing music, and just chilling. For me, that was a very cool moment, how it's easy to make friendships, especially in first year. It's a very warm moment. So and I think Waterloo's campus helps a lot. Waterloo is actually one of the few universities that really does have a campus structure that you can distinguish from other areas in the city, as opposed to maybe UFT, which is kind of integrated into downtown.
Right.
So I feel having a campus structure really helps with that. So that's memory one. Memory two is actually not a very pleasant memory, but now that I look back at it, I will always fondly remember it. and it's basically, it was in 3B term for management engineering. And just a small backstory, 3B is actually one of the more demanding terms for management engineers in terms of difficulty and workload in terms of tasks. And there was this one course, simulations, that was also quite challenging apart from the other courses. And I remember, and we had Waterloo had this lab dedicated just for management engineers. So I remember we had this huge project due, kind of confusing. Everyone was working on it, and I remember it was like mid 11 o'clock midnight, and you had half the class there, 15, 25 people, and it looked like organized chaos.
Yeah.
But people working, people helping each other. It's like, oh, can you explain this topic to me really quickly? How do I do this? And I remember just taking a glance back and just phasing out and just seeing this organized chaos. And it really made me fun, because this is one of the reasons why I love this program. You kind of do build a family at the end. Everyone was supportive, despite everyone having exact same pressures trying to finish this project. You should have seen the sense of collaboration there. It was kind of mind blowing. People helping each other, the talking, the chatter. It looked like a very cool, like I said, organized chaos. So that's a memory I'll always have in my mind. Have everyone stuck together at midnight to finish a project,
some
while
late
helping
nights, that's
each other.
for sure.
Exactly. So those would be
those are great memories, Fadel, and I totally remember that. And coming off the first one, because obviously things are a lot different right now with university being online for a lot of first years now in 2020 because of the pandemic. A majority of first year students, especially within Canada, the United States, wherever, it was online, and this is the first time that's ever happened. And now even for 2021, they're scheduling ahead. And we're not even in 2021 yet. We're 9 months out before the start of 2021, and it's anticipated to be online for first year students as well. So for obviously you and me, that's a huge whoa, because that was such a great experience. You had that opportunity to meet people, and I think everyone watching this knows that meeting people online is more difficult. So do you have any advice that you'd recommend to people to connect with people, say they're in a Zoom call or whatever, a Google Meet call or whatever is going on, where there's a bunch of new people that they've never met before and they're looking to network and build relationships? What would you do if you were in that situation, and kind of how do you think you would recreate the experience you had?
100%. And this is also a great point, Brandon. Thanks for bringing that up. And I think it will help many people listening to understand, because I feel like it's very crucial, because that whole week in Frosh where you get to meet people, I feel like is a very good foundation to start making connections in university and becoming more comfortable in that post high school skin. But
Right.
the first advice I'd give is, first of all, don't put pressure on yourself. Don't I've seen and I've read many people, and I have also many friends, family friends, who are also coming into first year, and I see them lectures like, oh, what do I do? I can't find friends. Relax, take a breather. That's the first step. Don't put pressure on yourself to oh, that's it, I need to make friends, I need to make a connection on Zoom. Because once you put unnecessary pressure on yourself like that, most likely you're planning to fail. So relax, just go with the flow, and it'll come. That would be the first really overarching umbrella step, advice. The second thing I'd say is reach out. Always reach out, because odds are you're not in that position alone. There's probably many other students, if not probably 90%, 95% of your class, who is in the exact same boat as you. So you have nothing to lose. So if I were you, for example, in a Zoom call, and another thing, make sure whenever possible to have your cameras on, because that will make it easier for people to recognize you, and it will also if other people have their cameras turned on as well, by default you'd be able to recognize people. Maybe I do after the Zoom call, if you're comfortable, a small announcement hey, we're all in first year, I'd love to chat with you guys more. I've dropped my social media. I don't know if you want to drop your Facebook, Instagram, whatever, and if you want, add me up, and I'd love to talk to you and schedule calls. I feel like it's similar for us as well. Right now I'm in my last co-op, And the same thing, this co-op was online. And for me at the beginning, I struggled with finding people to talk to, because usually you run into people in the company and you just have a
Right.
conversation, whereas, now you're stuck at home. So it's the same story. If you have like a group chat, and that's another big thing. If you don't have a class group chat, I would highly recommend you make one. It will help a lot. It will give you a sense of who's in your class, and it will like also make it easier if you want to hit people up. So I would say, like, get 2 or 3 people that you're comfortable with in your circle and create a student group chat for your class. And then from there, that could be like a good medium of communication to say, hey, I'm looking to, like, chill with or meet new people for my program. Here, add me up. And then schedule some time to talk with them, even if it's like a simple virtual, like 10-minute coffee chat, like just to know more. You'll be surprised. That goes a long way. So that would be me, like myself, in a summary. Don't stress out. Everyone's in the same boat. Don't put pressure on yourself to make connections. They'll naturally occur. And number 2, just take that first leap, like reach out, through creating, a Facebook group for your entire class where people can mingle, or even just, dropping it in after a Zoom lecture or within the Zoom lecture, like, hey, by the way, if anyone's interested, add me up. Would love to, to get to know people in my program.
Again, great advice, Fadel. And I think it goes back to what you were saying prior, that everyone's in the same boat in first year. Everybody doesn't have friends all of a sudden. They're used to having these distinct friend groups, which makes it hard for the groups to interact and mingle. There's stigmas in high school as well, and it's just kind of way people are. So when you come to university, even though it's online, you got to remember that everyone's in their distinct little boat right now, and you kind of want to pull everyone into a ship. So if you're a leader, if you think you're a leader, or even if you're not, it's a great opportunity to start building that ship and kind of putting on the Lego blocks and getting people connected. What I always joked about when I was asked this question actually a while ago, I joked about it's okay in this scenario to slide into people's DMs. It's okay to kind of dismiss that stigma that we have, that it's kind of weird to message somebody you don't know, but it's okay in this sense, because as long as it's well intentioned, because everyone's in the same boat, and you're gonna realize that some people tend to be more shy than others, and even in this online environment. But when you reach out and make that first connection, you open the doors and make it easier to cross the bridge between those boats to build that bigger ship. So I think that's great advice, and it's essential to recreating those opportunities that you and I had that were so easy to make then in the online environment, that you kind of work around for now. So as one last final question, Fadel, what is one piece of advice that you would give to your first year self that you think would have made a world of difference over your university career? And maybe it's something you knew then, you just simply didn't apply.
100%. One big thing I would say to myself, like one big advice I'd give myself, there's many big advices I'd actually give myself, but one big thing, and I think it'll come crucial, especially for my program, would be don't take things personally. Don't take things to heart. And to elaborate on this, I realized, like, for me, when I first entered, first year, you always think, like, you're the center of attention. If people like talk to you, it's because they want to talk to you, or the way they talk to you is directed at you. But I soon came to realize that, that's not the case. Many people are dealing with the same issues you're dealing with. Many people, there might be, many things behind the scenes to influence why they say certain things. And to, like, give more concrete examples, like, especially when we go into, like, the later years of our program past second year, there's a lot of, like, group projects. And group projects really let you interact with different personalities and different people, different, leadership styles. And for me, when I first, like, during group projects very early on, even in, like, first year, I was very influenced by people's tone or by certain words they used. And I would come and overthink them. I'm like, oh, what did they mean by that? Was this like a dig at me? Are they trying to say that, and it's like, get out of the echo chamber, man. Like, stop overthinking people's words, and, don't take things personally, because I'll tell you, it's like 8 times, 9 times out of 10, it's not personal. You know, the world's not out to get you. That's what I tell my first year self. I'd say try to like for everything, especially take, you know, look at everything from a very stoic and logical perspective. You know, don't bring emotions into, or try to avoid bringing emotions as much as possible, especially when it comes to schools, to projects. And really, like, you know, just focus on the work and objective that you're given at hand. So don't overthink small things, and don't take things personally would be a very, very big advice I'd give my first year self.
Again, great advice, Fadel. It was something that I struggled with too. I was always worried about who was putting in more time on projects, and I always felt like I was carrying more weight than I should, but I think we all feel like that sometimes, and that's just kind of the way it goes. But I want to thank you so much for coming here today, for having this chat with me, for being so open and about your experience and stuff, because I think it's so useful to share these different perspectives with people, and you definitely brought that today, a completely different perspective, and I really appreciate that.
My pleasure. Thank you so much as well. Likewise, Brandon, I really appreciate you, you know, having me on your, you know, like mini podcast series. I think it's an awesome initiative, and I can't wait more to see like the other episodes. I think this is like great, especially if you're in first year. This would be an awesome like series to like tune into, because it really gives you like I feel like an in-depth, uncurated experience into people that have, you know, gone through these hard the smooth the thick and thin of university, I'd say. So again, thank you so much for
100%.
having this initiative. I'm pretty sure many people coming to first year would appreciate this.
Thanks, Fadel. I appreciate it.
My pleasure, Brandon. Have a great day.